500-page Inspector General report from the Department of Justice. I've been going through it. And there's a number of very, very important things cited in this report. And I hope the intrepid journalists over at CNN and MSNBC are actually listening. It is a big deal. It confirms a great deal of what we know, and it also adds additional information. And before I get to it, I just heard the FBI director speak, and he's a disgrace. Nobody is attacking the institution of the FBI except Mr. Comey and the people who worked for him. Nobody's attacking the institution of the FBI except for the reporters and the leftists who always attack the institution of the FBI. I am attacking the corrupt officials at the top of the chain, many of whom have now been forced out. Now, unfortunately, I have to listen to network news at the top of the hour, and it's a disgrace. I know these people, so-called reporters, haven't read this report. I've gotten through about 3/4 of it. And still the information is stunning. Stunning. And you know who comes out best in this report? You know who comes out best? Donald Trump. I read this, and we'll get into the details. We've got plenty of time. I read this, and I think to myself, how is it that Barack Obama didn't fire James Comey? Well, the answer is simple. Because James Comey was doing his dirty work. Matter of fact, he was doing the dirty work of the Democrat Party. The Inspector General lays out a damning case of bias and then says there's no evidence of politics. Well, then what's the bias? What did all these texts mean? Now, among other things, it appears that Mr. Comey was using his personal emails for FBI business. No wonder he was soft on Hillary Clinton. The FBI director is forbidden from using his personal emails for FBI business because his personal emails are not secure, and they're certainly not secure enough. The report states what we already know in this sense, but it underscores it, that the FBI Director Comey usurped the authority of the Attorney General when he decided Hillary Clinton would not be indicted. He had no authority to make that decision. And so when the Democrats and Hillary Clinton run around and say that Comey sank her election, that's not what happened. He saved her campaign. Even in the final days, when they brought out the emails related to Abadan and Weiner, he still rushed in the end to save her campaign, and he still thought she was going to win. The report underscores that the FBI director, my words, obstructed potential legal action against Hillary Clinton and her violations, serial violations of the Espionage Act. He decided in the spring of 2016, as we knew, not to act against Hillary Clinton. Then he essentially announces it in July of 2016. He watered down the original case he was going to make against her in order to protect her. And it's also the case that Obama's name had been mentioned in there, that he had an exchange with Hillary Clinton of emails, and he removed that too. The director of the FBI, the buck stops at his desk, as Harry Truman used to say. He oversaw a staff the report calls a culture of leaking that repeatedly leaked. He leaked, his deputy leaked, and others leaked. And not only that, they regularly received, the leakers, free handouts from the media. Handouts. You want to talk about collusion? There was collusion between the pro-Hillary FBI, and I speak of the people at the top, and the media. Sometimes they would get free dinners. sporting events, things of that sort. Have you ever heard of anything like that? You wonder why the media hate Trump? Working with these crooked FBI agents. That's what they were. Working with these crooked FBI agents, these crooked people in the media, to try and take out candidate Trump and try to ensure Hillary Clinton's election. What other conclusion can you reach? And of course, Comey oversaw a staff that was anti-Trump. Anti-Trump. Comey violated long-standing rules and procedures of the Department of Justice and the FBI. And he was fired. He was fired not by Barack Obama when most of this occurred, but by the incoming president, Donald Trump. Comey was fired for cause. He was a bad cop, as I've said over and over again. He was a bad cop. He was fired for cause. And the media, which worked with the other bad cops at the FBI, gave them meals, took them to sporting events. The media relied on those bad cops to be bad journalists. CNN pretends this report says nothing. Nothing new here. Nothing new here? There's plenty new here, but what if there wasn't anything new here? Isn't it bad enough? Mr. Comey should be investigated criminally. Mr. Comey should be the one who receives a subpoena and forced to appear in front of a federal grand jury, not the president. Mr. Comey went on a book tour. He's made millions from his book. There's not a major media outlet in this country that didn't help promote him. Not a nighttime comedy show that didn't help promote him. Mr. Comey was corrupt. I don't mean corrupt in the sense of money. I mean corrupt in the sense of objectivity and duty. He was exposed before the IG report. Now he's been exposed with the IG report. You know, there's a sense of irony out there to see Trey Gowdy now all over TV, and he has a beard this week, and his hair's combed on the other side. Bitterly disappointed with the FBI. The same Trey Gowdy who was on TV a week or two ago, defending a spy at the FBI. An informant, don't you know? Why do we want to hear from Trey Gowdy? The report makes clear that there was significant bias in the investigation of Hillary Clinton. That is, for her. And there's something rather compelling in this report, really incredible in this report. This guy, Peter Strzok, he's not just an FBI agent. He was the head of the counterintelligence unit. He was a bigwig. He was a senior guy. He led the investigation against Hillary Clinton, such as it was. And he led the investigation relating to Russia. And the Inspector General makes abundantly clear that he treated one investigation much more passively than another. He couldn't wait to get to the Russia investigation, which is one of the reasons, but not the only reason, it took them so long to look at those emails, those Abaddon-Wiener emails. Because they were out to get Trump, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Strzok. Mr. Strzok needs a visit in front of a federal grand jury, too. You've heard the line, you've heard the back and forth on the text, the now infamous text between Page and Strzok. were struck assures Page that Trump won't win, but even if he does, we will, quote, stop it, unquote. That is, stop the Trump election. Who's obstructing what, ladies and gentlemen? Now, why didn't Barack Obama fire James Comey? Why didn't Barack Obama fire James Comey? Well, Mark, he didn't know all this. He knew some of it. Because Barack Obama liked what James Comey was doing. I've said it from the beginning. Barack Obama is ultimately responsible for all of it. He failed to stop the Russians from interfering in our election. And, of course, he failed to stop his own government from interfering in our election. And I don't think that bothered him in the least. Doesn't bother him now. When he gets all riled up, he heads over to Twitter and he tweets. He's not tweeting today, is he? No, he's not. The victim in this whole case was Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump who looks the absolute best as a result of this IG report, as far as I'm concerned. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Now, there's much to cover here. The Daily Caller, this is just one little piece of it. This is how they address this issue of handouts to journalists. And by the way, don't you love it when these journalists on TV, so-called, tell us that they stand for freedom of the press? How do they stand for freedom of the press? What do they do to protect the objectivity of the press in this nation? And so they write, the Department of Justice Inspector General identified a number of instances where FBI employees regularly spoke with members of the media and received a number of free perks from journalists, including meals and tickets to various events. On page 12 in the report, the IG says the department, quote, identified numerous FBI employees at all levels of the organization and with no official reason to be in contact with the media who were nevertheless in frequent contact with reporters. The IG expressed profound concerns, I'm quoting, about the volume and extent of unauthorized media contacts by FBI personnel that we have uncovered in our review. It's funny, in March of 2017, when I spoke at length about the espionage efforts against Trump World, I said most of this was coming from the FBI. Who else would it come from? They were leaking. The contact between FBI agents and the media extended to receiving, quote, improperly receiving benefits from reporters, including tickets to sporting events, golfing outings, drinks and meals, and admittance to non-public social events. So the media were paying for information. They had informants who were FBI agents within the FBI giving them information. Now, in the following paragraph, the IG implies that such benefits could have encouraged various agents to leak information to the press. The harm caused by leaks, fear of potential leaks, and a culture of unauthorized media contacts is illustrated in chapters 10 and 11 of our report, where we detail the fact that these issues influenced FBI officials who were advising Comey on consequential investigative decisions in October 2016, the report states, when they were really ginning up the Russia investigation. So this wasn't about Hillary, this was about Trump. The IG is forceful in its opinion that the problem with leaking is not, quote, with the FBI's policy, which we found to be clear and unambiguous. Instead, the leaking phenomenon appears to be a cultural attitude among many in the organization. And according to charts provided in the IG's report, one reporter had contact with 12 FBI officials, including an FBI executive and unit chief. Another reporter contacted an assistant director 21 times and a special agent 23 times, according to the IG. Some FBI employees were in contact with multiple reporters, with one special agent contacting various journalists 32 times. As such a finding by the IG helps shed light on how various information has reached outlets like CNN or the New York Times, throughout the criminal investigation into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, one of the striking findings from the report is how senior officials within the organization had no problem speaking with the media and breaking department policy and possibly receiving goods in exchange for that information. Goods, I think we used to call those bribes. Now, if Hillary Clinton had won the presidency, you wouldn't know one damn thing about this. Nothing. That is frightening. You wouldn't know a thing about this. If some individuals in Congress and a handful of individuals in media, one in particular in talk radio, hadn't been pressing, you wouldn't know any of this stuff. None of it. Here's a couple of bottom lines. Number one, Hillary Clinton should have been indicted. The fact is that James Comey saved her from an indictment. But, number two, if James Comey had not made a recommendation, the ultimate recommendation would have gone to Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General. She would not have supported an indictment. So, Mark, why do you say she would have been indicted? Number three, the matter should have been vetted through the public integrity section of the criminal division, where they have very solid career prosecutors who are used to public corruption cases. That's why I feel confident she would have been indicted. Her violations of the Espionage Act are not in dispute. They're not debatable. So most of this was done to protect her. Who else were they trying to protect? The current president at the time, Barack Obama. I'll be right back.
An unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
In the IG's report, we have collusion, we have obstruction, and we have insubordination. Collusion among and between reporters and FBI agents. These FBI agents would leak, and in many cases, in exchange for their leaks, they would get meals, tickets to sporting events, and so forth and so on. We have obstruction. Comey decided in the spring of 2016 not to act against Hillary Clinton. And he waited, well, till about June of 2016 to announce that he wouldn't. And we have insubordination. Comey usurped the authority of Department of Justice prosecutors and the Attorney General's power. So we do have collusion, obstruction, and insubordination. We have Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok, who decided, for political reasons, is there any other reason you can think of, to protect Hillary Clinton and to turn all the FBI's investigative resources he could muster against Donald Trump. This report is limited. It doesn't even get into the spy, FISA, the Clinton campaign and the DNC, laundering money through a law firm and a former British spy, to concoct information, to fabricate information against Donald Trump with Kremlin apparatchiks, which was used to get a FISA warrant. Doesn't even get into that, because that wasn't part of the investigation. Doesn't get into the unmasking of American citizens by the Obama administration. Doesn't get into that. So this is the tip of the iceberg. Now, what else have we learned from this? We have learned that the American media as a whole there's some exceptions, but I'm talking about the rule, and it is a significant rule, are mostly whores for the left. The reason why so many in the American media didn't report on the FBI is because they were colluding with the FBI. Which reporters? We don't know. Which media outlets? Which reporters and which media outlets gave gifts to FBI agents for information? Which ones? Why is that a secret? Was it CNN? Individuals at CNN? Was it MSNBC? Individuals at MSNBC? Was it Meet the Press? Was it Good Morning America? Was it the Today Show? What was it? Who were they? Was it the Morning Schmo and the soon-to-be Mrs. Schmo? Inquiring minds want to know. This isn't a matter of being disappointed, as the current FBI director said. He was very monotone. He talked about all the great things the FBI is doing. You don't need to convince patriots that the FBI is doing great things. We know that. We're the ones who defend the FBI. These people have sought to destroy the FBI, to turn it into something it's never supposed to be, a political weapon. And a political weapon that goes one way, against Republicans, or specifically against Trump. So now we have a special counsel investigating what? It starts with Comey, right? Comey said he leaked to his law professor friend, who then leaked to the New York Times because he wanted a special counsel to investigate Trump. Look at the absurdity of this. It's Kafkaesque. So the major perpetrator of the abuses of the FBI, under whom there was collusion, obstruction, insubordination, lawlessness, absolute lawlessness, he gets to trigger the appointment of a special counsel. Rod Rosenstein appoints a special counsel to investigate non-crimes, to investigate matters he can't even identify with any specificity. Which crimes? Which individuals? Incredible. James Comey, who knew about the application for the FISA warrant. James Comey, who knew about the dossier, says he never asked who funded it. He just assumed it was Democrats. Well, isn't that amazing? James Comey, who had to know there was a spy in the Trump campaign ranks. And you see, ladies and gentlemen, this is why you cannot trust the media. This is why the media are worse than fake. They hate America. So many of them do. I don't care what Wolf Blitzer says. If they loved America, they wouldn't conduct themselves this way. They call it straight and they'd write it straight, but they don't. The media are condemned in this report. Nobody's saying it. It needs to be said. The media are condemned by implication in this report. There's simply no question about it. And as I say, this is why when you listen to CNN and MSNBC or individuals from the New York Times or the Washington Post or these Sunday shows with them, this is why they all sound the same, because they're all doing the same thing. And they share an ideology. They absolutely do. So when Trump calls this professor a spy, you notice how they attacked him so viciously in the media. What do you mean a spy? You have no evidence. You have no proof of that. And so you can't prove that. Anybody who dares to stand up and be counted and question what's taking place and defend the president in this regard is attacked. Is a kook. The current director of the FBI, Wray, says they're going to have intense training for every single FBI agent to ensure that they conduct investigations objectively. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, this is fascinating. The Inspector General said that he is unaware that anybody was driven by political motivation, even though his massive report is laced with examples of bias, and he even uses the word bias. Well, bias for what? Are they biased against women? Are they biased against men? Are they biased against Jews? Are they biased against Christians? Are they biased against Muslims? Are they biased against gay people? What are they biased against? Of course it was politically driven. How else do you explain this? But what does training every single FBI agent to be objective have to do with anything? As far as I'm concerned, the vast majority of them are objective. They're chasing down real criminals, real terrorists, trying to protect the American people. The vast majority of FBI agents don't need training on this. These are the rules. These are the procedures and the policies of the FBI. They were there when I was at the Justice Department, and they were there long before I ever came to the Justice Department, and they're there right now. So when you say we're going to train everybody, you defuse the responsibility and accountability. You don't need to train everybody. You need to hold the people who violated the standing rules of the FBI to account. And here's the problem. Congress can't hold them to account. An Inspector General can't hold them to account. Not criminally. How can it be that we have a special counsel roaming around in the shadows looking for crimes to charge, and we have lawless activity by our own federal government, the Obama administration, at the highest levels of the FBI and our intelligence agencies, and that does not warrant a special counsel? Look, I am not a special pleader for special counsels. They're special because they have to be really appointed in extremely unique situations. And they have to be appointed constitutionally, which means a very specific mandate, specific criminal issues, specific people, specific organizations, not the kind of appointment Mueller got, which is essentially a blank sheet, because that leads to widespread abuse. But who exactly is going to investigate the FBI and the Justice Department with absolute independence from the FBI or the Justice Department? That's the problem. If there was ever a case for a special counsel, it's now. So don't call me and say, can't they be charged with this, charged with that? Until there is an individual who's in charge of an investigation, who has the authority to bring criminal charges, there will be no criminal charges. There should be an active federal grand jury as I speak in Washington, D.C., where Mr. Comey, where Mr. McCabe, where Mr. Strzok, where Ms. Page, and all the rest of them. And certain individuals at the Department of Justice, the former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, yes, Sally Yates, the former Deputy Attorney General, throw a wide blanket, just like Mr. Mueller does. He throws his blanket everywhere. But in this case, we have very, very serious violations. Very. The intrusion into our election by the Obama administration, using the entities, the instrumentalities of the federal government, is 100 times worse than anything the Russians did. And I have nothing but contempt for Putin. I'm one of the few radio talk shows and one of the few hosts who has been consistent in my contempt for Putin, unlike the Code Pink Republicans. And, as I said, it is rather remarkable that the administration that failed to prevent that intervention or do anything effective about it was the Obama administration, and they're not under investigation for anything. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.